All right, test, check 1, 2. How's this thing? Is this thing on? All right, test, check 1. All right, let's get this thing going. There I am, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. So, welcome to another Wednesday song feedback stream. This is what we do here at Catalyze Academy on Wednesdays. And this is the stream that I do where you guys can basically come in and send me your tracks, and I will take a listen to them. And I will give them my honest feedback on what I think you can do to improve your tracks. The way this works is you can go ahead and check out the spreadsheet that I just linked and pinned up at the top of the chat. You can follow that. That'll take you to the spreadsheet where you're going to put in the link to where I can stream your track, your YouTube name, any comments or things you want me to know, all that kind of stuff. And then I will kind of go through those in the order that they are received. Before we do that, there are a few things that I want to go over, just so we're based on the same page in terms of how this whole situation operates. So first off, ideally, I would prefer original tracks. So no remixes, anything like that. Just because if you're remixing a track, I don't know the track you're remixing, then I don't know what to give you feedback on and what's you and what's not you. The other thing is YouTube's weird about copyright claims and things like that. So if you're remixing something and then I play it, then the stream, there's copyright stuff and it's obnoxious to deal with, but that's just the way it is. Ideally, I would prefer works in progress over any finished tracks. So, because if you have a track that's done and you send for feedback, it's useful for the next track you make, but you're not actually going to go back and change the track you already finished and released. So I prefer works in progress, but if you only have things that are done, then that's totally fine. In terms of you guys and what you're going to be doing, ideally it is encouraged but not required that if you are submitting a song for feedback, that you also give other people feedback in the chat. And that way it's everybody helping each other out and working together to get better as producers and get better as a community. On top of that, feedback, if it's just it's good or I liked it, doesn't really count unless you tell us why it was good or why you liked it. One of the things I like to do is think about, like, if this is my track, what do I do to improve this? Like, what's the next step that I take? Ideally, or not just ideally, you should only submit one track at a time. Usually towards the end of the stream, once we get through everybody's songs, I'll have the chance to go back and look at tracks if you want to submit more than one track at a time. But for the most part, when we get started, one track per week, but most likely we will have time to get to more than one depending on how many tracks people send in. On top of that, if all of these streams are recorded and put on the channel, so if you would like to go back in and review any of the feedback that you've gotten, you are more than welcome to do so just by finding the playlist, all the streams on it. On top of that, if you can't make it to a stream live, if you're like, you want to get feedback, but Wednesday afternoons are really busy for you and you can't make it, you are more than welcome to submit the track early. I use the same spreadsheet every week, so you can just use that same link, log in there, put in the link whenever you want, and then you can watch the stream whenever you want later on. So you don't necessarily need to be here live. On top of that, all of the feedback is free. You don't have to pay anything for this. I just do this out of the kindness and love in my heart, and I just like doing it because it's fun to talk about music and help people out. If you would like to support the channel in any way, if you want to help us out, you can hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. You can hit the like button. You can check out the Discord. You can tell your friends, all this stuff. What's up, Yogi? How you doing today? You can share any of my videos, any of my stuff. Tell your friends, tell your family. All that kind of stuff is super useful. On top of that, if you want to help support the channel financially, you can super chat in chat to donate if you want. You can also check out the Patreon where you get access to like extra live streams and other cool stuff as well. But don't feel obligated to do that if you don't want to. All the feedback is free. So yeah, that's kind of the start of stream stuff that I go over every week. Hopefully that'll make sense. If it doesn't, feel free to let me know. And then at this point, normally we would start diving into tracks. However, I'm checking out the spreadsheet and there are no tracks in the spreadsheet yet, which hasn't happened in a very long time. So I guess we will just be hanging out for a little bit until people start to show up with tracks. But if you are just joining us, you are more than welcome to click on the link, takes you to the spreadsheet, submit your track that way. Also, if you just have questions, if you want to just hang out and talk about making music, you're also more than welcome to do that in the chat as well. All right, looks like we have some tracks going in there. Well, while we wait for those tracks to be put in the spreadsheet, if you guys have not been listening to any of the new Arca albums, they are fantastic. Arca just released like 4 albums in a row, kicks 2 through 5, and they are all very good if you are at all into weird experimental music. She does a really good job of just like mixing it up and doing lots of really cool, really innovative stuff. So that's my recommendation for the week. Kick 3, I think in particular, is the best one out of at least 2 through 5. But they're all worth checking out and they're all worth listening to. So check out Arca. Her stuff is super cool. All right, so we got a track from Yogi. All right, got a new track here. I'm stoked to hear. Sweet, well, we're gonna go ahead and get started. As always with the first track, I'm gonna do a little bit of a sound check just to make sure my levels are good going out to you guys. So let me know if it is too quiet or too loud or just right. Nice. Overall, really cool. I like what's going on in here quite a bit. Nice groove and rhythm to it. It's got that like classic, just kind of strange and weird, but also still kind of works in a lot of ways. So it's cool to see you kind of like sticking to your style, but also kind of like growing out and expanding in a lot of different ways and making things that like are sometimes just like straight up on the experimental side, and sometimes things that like have a bit more groove to them. And I think it's working for you. I think there's 2 or 3 things in here that I think really deserve taking a look at. The first is this transition right here. I like this part a lot. However, I think this little bit right here, I think the kick is a little bit too delayed. I'm wanting there right after here, right after that little bit of silence for the kick to come in strong, and you're postponing it for another like bar or two. And I think there's something you said about like creating that sense of expectation and then playing with expectation. But I was really hoping to get like a good strong kick right here. And the kick doesn't come till here. So it creates this weird in-between zone where I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing here. I think people are going to be expecting a kick there, and I think you should deliver with a kick right there at... right at 110. I think that's where the kick should start. Up to you. If you like it the way it is, if you like kind of messing with people that way, that's totally fine. Keep it there. But I was hoping for that to be a bit more like, boom, punctuated, there's the kick. Other than that, I really like the intro. The sound at the beginning is a little jarring, and I think that's okay. If it were me, I might filter it a little bit or tweak it a little bit so it's not quite so, I don't know, dissonant. The kind of like choppy, beepy, synthy sound. And then the other big thing I think needs some work is this sound right here. This kind of like wavy sound. Where does it start? That sound right there. That starts around 129. It's doing this kind of like pulsing up and down. It just sounds out of tune, and it kind of throws me off. And again, I think that there's, I think it's something if you're using dissonance as a tool, but here it just makes it like, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that one particular sound. All the rest of the sounds I really like. And it goes on for a long time. But once it goes away, this part starts to really groove for me. Love the use of the vocals. Vocals here are fantastic. Yeah, basically everything from like here on I love, and I think it's really good. What's up? Is it Silent? How you doing? I do think it'd be cool if the percussion got a little bit more complex towards the end here. I like that you're adding in extra hats and doing a little bit more in this part. But I think if you did a little bit more with percussion, this last part would be perfect, and then you're basically good to go from here on out. But yeah, love the vocals. If you want to do more with the vocals, get a little more creative with like pitching them up and down and chopping them up and doing things, I also wouldn't mind that. But I like what you got going on a lot right now with the vocals. Yeah, the vocals are probably one of the best parts of this whole track. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking there. That little transition, the pulsing sound here, the sound of the intro. I think it's also the same sound as the outro. Yeah, that sound I think is okay. Could be better. And then a little bit more percussion and complication towards this last like kind of quarter. But like I said, I like it a lot. It's got a lot of style. It's got a lot of character to it. Sounds really good to me. Chat, let me know if you got any other thoughts, comments, ideas, questions. Toss them in the chat. Sweet. And then if anybody is just joining us, you are more than welcome to send a track by clicking on the link up at the top of the chat and pasting your link in there. All right, so next up we got a track. I believe this is pronounced silent. I'm assuming that's the way it's pronounced. Yeah, no worries, Yogi. Nice. That's a really dope sounding track. Is this you on the production or on the vocals or both? Because they both sound really good. Vocal processing, honestly, sounds fantastic. I think the layering of the vocal is a nice bit of reverb on there. They like have a nice atmosphere to them. The quality of the vocalist, I think, is really strong. Your kick and your snare also sound really good. Nice. Yeah, the mixing sounds pretty tight and pretty clean. I think in terms of the mix, the only thing, actually mix and production side of things, the hats to me sound a little bit flat. Not there's anything wrong with them, but number one, they're a little bit too quiet, in my opinion. And number two, they sound a little stiff. They're a little bit robotic. They're a little too quantized. So for me, I would take the hats and move them a little bit off the grid. Give them some swing, give them a little bit of funk, maybe like toss in a few fills in there. I think that'll make a big difference. But yeah, vocal sound super tight. I feel like the only other, there's two things that I was thinking about that I feel like this track could use, but they're not totally necessary. One of them is a melody. There's not really much melodically going on here besides the vocals. You have these really nice chords going on. Yeah, I think a little bit of either a melodic synth in there, either some like plucky notes, like a little kind of like plucky synth playing a melody that's kind of based off of the vocal melody could be really nice. Or even like some long notes, like some long like Dr. Dre, West Coast hip hop kind of like glided notes moving up and down could be a cool thing to add in, especially towards the end, to kind of bring up the energy level a little bit. Because right now it feels like while the beat itself is fantastic, the beat is like really tight. It's very minimal. And there's there's certain quality to minimalism in a beat that I think can be really effective. But I like it when if it starts minimal like this, and then as the song kind of crescendos, as it kind of like builds up, adding more melodic elements in there, I think that would just be the icing on the cake, really. Other than that, the other thing that'd be really cool is some kind of bridge. It feels like we just kind of go verse, chorus without much break in there. And I think if you wanted to have a little breakdown section where the drums get really minimal, you add in some extra chords, maybe that's the point when you put in your extra melodic elements. So you just get a break from the vocals for a second. I think that could be really helpful. Not totally necessary. I think the song arrangement works and it flows really well as it is right now. But I think it can be really effective to give the listener a break from the vocals, and that way when they come back in, they feel more powerful, especially if you are going to build up more things at the end there. But yeah, those are the only real things that I'm really hearing here that I think could be really helpful. Extra melodic layers, maybe a bridge, a little bit more love on the hi-hats. But other than that, like I said, the zero issues on the vocal processing and almost no issues in terms of the actual production of the track. And the mixing sounds, like I said, real tight. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. I'm going to jump around real quick to see if there's anything else I forgot. I also really like the intro. I think the intro, this part was really cool. Some of the little vocalizations in the intro I think could be a tiny bit louder, but it's pretty minor. I don't think that's super necessary. But looks like you got about 14,000 plays in a couple of days, which is pretty sick. That's awesome. An acoustic version of this would be really solid too. I would definitely like to hear what that's like. Yeah, you could insert something like, you could even do something where like you cut out the instrumental and just do some vocal stuff with some of the little crackling. Do something like this as your bridge, but with like extra vocal things going on, and just kind of recycle your intro a little bit. That could be cool. But yeah, sounds dope. Really, really solid work on that. Chat, feel free to let us know if you got any other thoughts or opinions or ideas. Also, if anybody is just joining us, you are more than welcome to send a track by clicking on the link up at the top of the chat. Next up, we got a track from Lichtstrom. God, I'm so bad at pronouncing things. Yeah, no worries. Nice, that's sick. So in the spreadsheet, they mentioned this is one of their first tracks they made. So there's experimenting with some loops here. Yeah, it's cool. I'm kind of digging it. I could totally see this being played like 3 a.m. at like the chill tent of a festival in the jungle. Like that would be the perfect place to play this, in my opinion. Uh, so I like what you're doing. I like what you got going on. I think that as of right now, obviously there's not really an arrangement to it. It's just kind of just a bunch of loops going on. So I think the next step here is to start either adding in new layers or taking out layers to kind of create a beginning, middle, and end, or an intro, verse, chorus, or some kind of arrangement that kind of changes over time, right? So one of the best ways to do that, if you're in this position where you're like, I got a set of loops that I like, where do I go from here? Is to recycle what you already have. So for example, you have this kind of like plucky synth guy. There's almost kind of like metallic-y pluck kind of sound. So try, pitch that up an octave, or try pitching it down an octave, or try double timing it, or try half timing it. Just kind of like take things you already have and then recycle them and kind of see what you can do with them. I think especially if you're going to do this kind of like minimal techie kind of housey kind of vibe, little tiny details can make big differences. So maybe you start with that sound that has no delay on it, and then later on you add a bunch of delay to it, or you have a pitched up version with a bunch of delay layered with the version with no delay. So you kind of like mix and match different ideas there. Other than that, I really like your bass line here. It's really kind of subtle. It's not doing a huge amount of like heavy lifting for the track, but it's definitely there and it's definitely present. I think if you wanted to, you could maybe layer that up, or at certain points replace it with a more kind of like plucky bass line, and I think that could be really cool. The position of your kind of snare sounds is a little interesting, but I kind of like it. If you wanted to kind of like build this into more of like a traditional housey kind of groove, you could make sure to put your snare on the 2 and the 4 of each bar. I don't know if this is just the audio loop or MIDI or how you made this, but putting a snare on the 2 and the 4 will give it this nice kind of steady housey rhythm. I also like what you're doing a lot with the hi-hats, and I think you could do some more with them. Either add in more hi-hat layers or shaker layers, or just more percussion in general would fit this style a lot, or fit it really well. So right now, your bass line has these very kind of long, wobbly notes to it. Right there. I mean, it's I don't know how else to describe it. Your current bass line has these like longer notes, is what it sounds like. So instead of having these long notes for your bass line, have bass lines that are like a bit more kind of like quick. I can actually show you real quick since we got plenty of time, it looks like. Let me just fix some things. And make sure we get audio coming from live. Let's turn that on. So if you're brand new, I'm not expecting you to know how to synthesize your own sounds. But if you go for, oops, it's resonance. More of this kind of a bassy sound instead of what you have right now. So like, where instead of being these like really long notes, they're like much shorter notes. I think that could be kind of cool. Whatever notes you want. And again, I'm not expecting you to know how to do that from scratch, but if you kind of look for loops and you look for audio that have that kind of plucky sound, where it's like, I think that would fit really well with this track and add a lot to the kind of like groove and the danceability of this track. Not that there's anything wrong with the bass line you have. I think the bass line is really good, but I think I could definitely hear a plucky kind of thing going on here, and I wouldn't mind that. Let me know if that doesn't make sense. Yeah, and then I think just more kind of trippy, weird sounds. You already have some of these kind of like interesting background sounds. like that little guy right there. More stuff like that is fantastic. Just layer in cool, weird sound effects, trippy sound effects, put a bunch of delays on them, then you're good to go. And just kind of like layer those together and use those to fill out your arrangement and create more kind of like I said, either intro, verse, chorus kind of thing, or an A section, a B section, whatever. But yeah, that's cool. I like what you got going on. Definitely has a lot of groove to it. Definitely, like I said, like kind of funky and groovy, but also kind of minimal at the same time. So I can see where you're going with this, and I think it just needs some more time and some more love to develop a lot of the different ideas you're already working on. And I'm curious to kind of see, where that takes you. But yeah, I appreciate you sending that track. Chat, any thoughts, ideas, comments, questions? If this is your track, what are you going to do to make it better? Yeah, no worries. All right. So we got a track from MXNCH. Munchfee is what I'm going to call that. Your track is not working. So you might need to update the link real quick. Yeah, definitely hit me up with the follow-up whenever you get around to it. Although I think, honestly, next week streams will be at normal times next week, except for there's gonna be no Wednesday stream because I've got a holiday thing that I have to deal with. So no feedback stream next week, but the Monday stream and the Tuesday stream are gonna be as normal. Okay. I got the new link. Should be good now.
Cuando lo pienso me pongo nerviosa, me tiemblan las piernas, empiezo a llorar. Llevo algún tiempo queriendo decirte que siento que todo va mal. Quiero sacarme de la cabeza toda esa mierda que solo va más. No tengo ganas de estar esperando que pasen los años y todo esté igual.
That was dope. That was really cool. Since it's really short, I want to listen to it again just to make sure, just to kind of hear what's going on. This is really interesting to me, and straight off the bat, I think this track can be longer. This definitely feels like this could and should be a longer track, but I want to listen to it one more time.
Cuando lo pienso me pongo nerviosa, me tiemblan las piernas, empiezo a llorar. Llevo algún tiempo queriendo decirte que siento que todo va mal. Quiero sacarme de la cabeza toda esa mierda que solo va mal.
This is a fantastic track. I really like it. I'm not like listening to it at the beginning. I wasn't sure what direction you were going to go with it, and it really kind of surprised me. And it works, I think. So I'm gonna try to go through this chronologically. The beginning, I think, sounds really good. Love the use of reverbs. I think you could tone down the reverbs a tiny bit, and that would be okay. But I like the heavy reverbs there. And maybe a little bit less volume on the guitars and a little bit more volume on the vocals. All right. And then when the drum beat first came in, I was not a big fan of it, but then it kind of grew on me a little bit. And I think it's just you have this double kick without the snare. Yeah, you go kick, 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 snare, and then you go back to kick, snare, which I thought was an interesting choice. I'm not sure if I like it or not. It threw me off a little bit, but I think because you go back to the regular kick, snare pattern, I think it's fine. I just thought that was a choice I would not have made. So I like what you're doing with your hats. You're doing the open hats with the kick and the snare and the closed hats in between. If it were me, I might swap those and maybe have the open hats in between the kick and the snare. Could be either way. But I would definitely toss in a few extra hats here and there. Right now, they seem really kind of consistent with the rest of the drums. Yeah, occasionally just toss a couple extra hats in there. Just a little like kind of hat fills, I think will help a lot with that drum beat. And then basically from here on, from about 50 seconds to like, I don't know, a minute 15, it's fantastic. It kind of like, it shifts from one thing, which to me feels like this very almost kind of like rockin', like a little bit of rock, but like a little bit of like indie rock kind of vibe, into this more electronic music thing. And it works really well. I think your main kind of bass synth here could be a little bit louder and maybe a little bit fuller. So maybe saturate it and maybe distort it a tiny bit more. I wouldn't mind that. This fill right here is fantastic. More of this. You do this extra little sound right at the end of that fill and it works amazingly. Yeah, more stuff like that, and I would definitely appreciate it. And then at the very least, I would do one more verse of you singing. This kind of thing, but maybe switch it up a little bit. And then go back into one more of like this. And I think that would fill out the arrangement really well. If you want to keep it short, go for it. But I definitely I heard that and I was like, I immediately need to listen to it again because it's too short. So I think you got room for one more verse here, one more chorus, then go to the outro. But yeah, I think it's a really cool track, really interesting style to it. A lot of style points. Which is fantastic. So yeah, is that you on the guitar and the vocals? Because they also sound really good. But yeah, that's what I think about this track. Really cool work. I'd love to see more of this and just hear more of it. I think it's fantastic. So good job there. If there's anybody who is just joining us, you are more than welcome to send a track by clicking on the link up at the top of the chat. Takes you to the spreadsheet. toss your track in there, and I will give it a listen. Yeah, the vocals sound really good. The guitar sounds really good. Um, I'm just super curious to hear you explore more of this kind of like electronic music world and do more of those kind of like weird, glitchy edits, little fills like that, more synth stuff. And that way you can kind of have one foot in this, like I said, kind of like indie rock kind of world, and one foot into this almost kind of like future bassy, almost kind of like hyper bass kind of world. And I think that could be really cool, interesting take on both those genres. Yeah, yeah. Appreciate you sending in the track. All right, we got a track from After Party, but no video this time. Yeah, the artwork's really good for it too. I agree. Dope. I'm glad to see that you took your homework seriously here. So, if you guys weren't here, I think it was last week. Um, After Party's been pretty consistent sending me tracks, and it's gotten to the point where the only feedback I had for his tracks were to work on his drums. So I told him to focus on his drums, and so that's what he did with this track, and it worked. The drums sound great. I really like them. Honestly, no feedback on them. They sound really natural. They sound like a live drummer. Um, I think actually they start out okay, and then by the time we get over here, this is the drums I'm looking for that I think fit with your style really well. So fantastic job on those. Um, Literally no comments on the drums unless you wanted to maybe saturate and compress them a tiny bit more, or if you want to go more of that lo-fi world, like maybe distort them just a hair, just to give them that kind of like a little bit of extra crunch. But in terms of the drum sequencing, the sample selection, and just the kind of like overall groove of the drums, spot on. So feedback in terms of like other things that you can do here. The main synth part that they start off with. Not in love with that sound. I like almost all of the other synth things they have going on. It just sounds a little bit simplistic compared to a lot of the other synth stuff you've been doing, and compared to the drums. And I know I told you to not focus on the synths and focus on the drums, so maybe you just haven't gotten around to that yet. But the boom, 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 just feels a little too simple. I like this guy though. Love those chords too. I like that one synth line a lot better with the delay on it. I think it sounds better here after you kind of shift it and add the delay there. Yeah, here we're grooving. Here we're like killing it. Yeah, it's just that main kind of like bassy synth line. I would probably swap out for something else. But I love all the synth parts, and I think in terms of as an exercise to level up your drums, this is highly successful, and I'm really stoked about what you did with the drums there, because I think that those are the kind of drums that I think will fit really nicely with the overall the kind of style you're going. But yeah, I think it sounds really good. Additive drummer, I think works really well. The whole thing sounds really solid. And if you wanted to process your drums a tiny bit more, I wouldn't mind, but I don't necessarily think they need that necessarily. Sweet. So I see we got a few more people who are joining us recently, looks like. If you have a track and you'd like to send something, you can do so by clicking on the link up at the top of the chat. Yeah, Jason, you are more than welcome to send anything you want. Oftentimes, the earlier the better. A lot of people think, like, a lot of people don't like to share things until they're like developed or like fully, mostly developed. But I think it's good to share things early on, and that way you get the feedback early, and then you can actually take that. You can post it to the Discord if you want. It's easier for me to if you do it just in the spreadsheet, but if you do it in the Discord, that's fine. All right, and Yogi, I'm gonna move your second submission down a few, just so I remember who has sent a track and who hasn't. Jason, do you just put it in the share your work part of the Discord? Cool. Because yeah, at this point, once we get to the track on Discord, we'll have gotten through at least one track from everybody. So if you are just joining us and you'd like to send a track, if you send one in, you will be right after this one. All right, here's the track from Jason. Cool. Nice. I think it sounds dope. I think it's got a lot. I can see the core idea here. It works really well. I think that the key to making this track work is going to be the right amount of weird, trippy sound effects, which I think you've started on, because I think the drums and the bass sound really good to me. They're dark, they're groovy. Like I could hear this being played in a club or a festival or something like that. They're working. All the percussion is too loud, but that's you haven't mixed it yet, so don't worry about that. But in terms of like the kick and all that kind of stuff, I like what's going on. It feels like I'm feeling the vibe that this is putting out. And then throughout the track, you're just like kind of like sprinkling some of these weird sounds in here. And I think that really making sure you put a lot of time and love into those sounds and making sure that they are loud enough and they are not too many, not too few, just the right amount that like it keeps the listener engaged, keeps somebody who's like dancing all night and being like, oh, there's a new sound, and like there's a new sound, so like it stays interesting. So let's kind of jump around a little bit. I love that little hit, that little really kind of like hollow tom sounding hit. Sounds really cool. This sound for sure can be way louder. This kind of synthy sound you've got on. That I think needs to be way up and way more saturated. There's also a little bit of noise here. It sounds like you got a little white noise going on. And then at some points, the noise just ends, if I recall correctly. Yeah, the white noise just ends there. So either keep the noise all the way through or don't. This part's cool too. Like there's a really cool energy to this track, but I do think the mix needs some love. Yeah, same thing. Synths here need to be way louder. Percussion needs to be way quieter. And then just like occasionally toss some of the weird sounds in there. You do it more towards the end here, but I think here too, just like put in some weird sound effects, weird little like pitch bendy things, or like really fast arpeggiator or something like that. Even little vocal samples, little like oohs and ahs with lots of reverb and delay just to kind of bounce around the space. You have a lot of space in the high frequencies that's not being utilized. And I think that's why the sound effects are going to be cool, because they'll like keep it spicy, they'll keep it interesting, but they'll also help fill up some of those higher frequency areas and go nuts with reverbs and delays on those sounds. This part's cool. I feel like it's a little slow getting to like this point. Once we get here, it starts to get more interesting. So maybe make this a little shorter, or maybe get a little louder, a little faster. And this part's cool. I think this build up could be a bit more energetic. It could make me feel more excited before the kick comes in, for sure. Like that little reverse sound is super cool. Little things like that, but instead of having it be really long, make them really short. Yeah, a lot of those things, keep them shorter, put more delays on them. So that way it's like you have a thing, it echoes out for a while, and then you have space. And then you have another thing, it echoes out for a while, and then you have space. That's kind of what I'm envisioning here. That's kind of what I think will really help the track kind of flow and kind of be put together. But like I said, I like the dark energy to it. I like the kind of driving of the drums. I think more power behind a lot of those synth lines and more trinkets or little like bits of high frequency synthy sound design weird stuff to put in there. But yeah, I think it's dope. I think it sounds really cool. I think it's really close to being there, to like being at that point where you're like, all right, I'm ready to drop this at the club. Chat, any other thoughts, ideas, questions, comments? If you guys are enjoying the feedback, feel free to hit the like button or subscribe if you're not already subscribed. All right, so at this point, I think we've gotten through all the songs on the spreadsheet. If there's anybody who has not submitted a song, feel free to toss one in there right now. We got one more from Yogi. But if you would like to send me a track, now would be the time to do it. Let me make sure I got the right track here. Yogi, the track link you sent me for the second one is not working, so you're gonna have to send a new one in there. Yeah, if you have another track, so at this point we've gotten through everybody, at least one track. So if you have a second track that you would like me to hear, you can toss it down at the bottom. Right, I'm gonna try this one more time, and then we're gonna keep going down the list. Oh, we also got a track from Julio. What's up, Julio? How you doing today? Nice, Julio. I'm seeing a lot of progress from some of your earlier tracks. It sounds like everything's in key now. The arrangement makes sense. Everything feels like it fits together a lot tighter than some of your earlier tracks. The drums still sound really good. Not a whole lot of complaints about the drums. If you wanted to put a little bit of reverb on your snare, I wouldn't mind that. But other than that, I think the drums sound really solid. I think the big thing this track is missing for me is vocals. I think that as of right now, the arrangement feels like it does feel a little bit slow. So if you want this to be purely an instrumental, I think I would make it a little bit shorter. But if you want to put some vocals on this, I think the length will probably work. Because once you have vocals in there, that'll help carry the focus of the song for the amount of time that this is taking. So I think it's time to start tossing some vocals on here and kind of seeing what that does to your arrangements and where that puts you. I'm going to run through it to see if there's anything else I forgot in here, but I think overall it's sounding pretty decent. I do think the intro is a little bit boring at first. The bass here is very bassy. And so I'm wondering if you want to use a bass that's maybe a little bit more high frequency to make this more interesting. But I think the first 20 seconds to me, they don't grab my attention. So the first 20 seconds of the intro here, either there need to be more layers or more things going on, or if you want to, you could just cut it out and start at about 20 seconds in. I think that'd be fine. And then same with this section here. If there's vocals here, I think you're fine. Otherwise, this section's too long. Yeah, and I think the rest of the arrangement, I think you put some vocals on there, it'll change it quite a bit, and then you can kind of go from there in terms of whether you need more layers or less layers, or more parts to the arrangement or less parts to your arrangement. But I do think the bass line here does need some work. The kick in the last section here sounds great. The kick sounds nice and huge here. But yeah, those are kind of things I'm thinking. That's kind of what I'm looking at for right now. I also just feel like maybe, I think I said this for your last track too, but some horns on this I think would sound really good. Some like trumpet and some trombone, doing some like horn stabs occasionally, could be a cool way to like add a lot of energy to this track. Because right now it feels a little bit, I don't know, it's pretty mellow. And so I think some sounds that bring a lot of energy, like some horns, would go really well in this track. But yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Chat, any other thoughts, ideas, questions, comments? Let Julio know. And just remember that if you are submitting a track for feedback, it is highly encouraged that you also give feedback to other people. And that way we can all share all the knowledge and information. All right, so we got another track from Yogi. He said this is pretty early in development. That's pretty sick. I think that it does get a little bit repetitive. It definitely has some like 90s rave vibes to it. And I really would just want there to be a big kick drum in there. Just a big boomy kick drum, just to like, I don't know, really emphasize the 90s rave vibes of the whole thing. That's the big thing it's missing to me. Other than that, I like what's going on with the kind of almost kind of like acidy kind of like weird synth line, and I love the percussion. I love all the weird percussive hits that have going on. I think that adds some like cool, interesting rhythm to it. And then you did some really weird cutting here. At first, I thought that my audio was just cutting out weird, but you did some weird cuts with timing right here. Right there. Like I thought my computer was glitching out, but it seems intentional, and it's kind of weirding me out, but it's also kind of cool. I think sometimes doing weird things like that to kind of play with your audience is really cool. But yeah, I think just the whole thing, big kick drum, and then a little bit more development of the arrangement. But as a core concept, I think it's kind of cool. Like this part's kind of cool. But the kick's not doing it for me here. And I like the percussion you have going on here. I think especially as we get to the end and we've kind of heard that kind of like acidy synth line for a while, you could do some really weird edits with that in terms of like chopping some out, reversing some, like really like go heavier on the glitches at the end. And that way, again, like I love songs that start with things being like weird but still kind of like make sense, and then as the song goes on it makes less and less sense until the end you get there and it's just like really, really strange. So I would like to, if it were me, I would go more glitchy towards the end here as things go on. But just in general, bigger kick drum, a little bit more variety in terms of the arrangement and the other things I mentioned in there. But I think it's cool. I think it's a cool track. But yeah, that one synth line does get a bit repetitive by the time you get to the end there. Oh, what's up, Tripathi? How you doing? Yeah, I think not just automation, but like chopping and slicing and moving around. I think that's also going to be really important to maximizing the craziness of it. All right, sweet. We got, as far as I can tell, this is the last track on the list. So if anybody else has not yet submitted a track, now would be the time to do it. Again, love it. Fantastic. Way too short. Give me more of this. I want more. I feel like this is just like I'm just starting to get into it, and then the song is done. So I think, obviously, I think the intro is fantastic. This could be longer, and I think potentially put some vocals in here. Um, Again, like doesn't need to be like crazy lyrics or anything, but little vocalizations, little oohs and ahs with reverb and you know delays bouncing around. I think could be really cool to really just like set the space, like really like bring the listener in first before you start building it up. And like this whole intro could be a minute long, and I think that would be totally fine. This part sounds great. When the kick first comes in, it sounds a little weird to me. I'm not sure why. It just sounds a little like it's not impactful. It sounds like it's like weirdly compressed or something like that. And then after the first kick, it sounds better, but the first kick sounds kind of strange. Or there's just some volume automation on the kick there where it's like it's starting quiet and getting louder. So the first couple of kicks are like, they're not that impactful. By the time we get to the end, they are. So I would maybe smooth that out a little bit so that there's a bit more consistency in terms of the volume of those kicks, and they all feel impactful without the first one feeling surprising and out of place. This part's great. The only real thing I would say about this section here is occasionally put in a couple extra snares. Right now we're just going kick, snare, snare. But if we went kick, snare, kick, snare, kick, or something like that, or kick, snare, kick. I don't know. A little extra snares just to like spice it up a little bit. So it's like, not all the time, but every like couple bars could be kind of cool. Really nice use of noise here too. You can hear like this subtle bit of white noise there that kind of fills in that space. I can hear that the noise tails out there. But yeah, other than getting a little fancier with your snares, I love that as a like main kind of hook or main kind of drop. I think that if you wanted to get a little bit more melodic in there, I would not mind with either just some like quick little synth, melodies in between your kicks and your snares. Or if you take my advice and put some vocalizations in the beginning, toss some vocals in there as well. And I think that would also work really well. Or occasionally just like throw one of those piano chords in between, and like where you're expecting there to be a kick or something like one of the big hits, just like piano chords, and then go right back into it. Could be kind of cool. And I feel like you have a really good understanding of how this kind of drop works, and I think you're doing a really good job already with it. So I think that really get experimental with it. Like, I don't know, this reminds me a lot of like some like Quiet Bison or something like that. Yeah, almost maybe even some like Igloo Ghost kind of stuff in there. Could be kind of cool. I kind of like the timbre of the snare, Yogi. I think it works. So one of the things that excites me the most about both of the tracks that you've shared today is that not only do the drops sound really good, but the intro and outro also work really well. And you have the guitar and the vocals in the other track, and here you have the piano, the kind of like lo-fi reverb piano. And I find oftentimes people who spend a lot of time working on these kind of like big, heavy, crazy drops, the intros and outros are not as interesting. And in both the tracks you've shared, the intros and outros have been fantastic, and then the drops have also worked really well. So um, it's cool to see somebody who's like putting love into both those things. Even if you said you haven't put much work into the intro yet, it still sounds good. But yeah, once again, make it longer. Give me some more melodies in there. Build out a full arrangement for this thing, and then send it back to me, because I definitely would love to hear both the tracks you played again. Yeah, really solid work across the board. Everybody who sent in tracks today, I've thoroughly enjoyed them. We've had a bunch of new people who have not sent in tracks before, so it's super cool to have you guys around, and welcome, and feel free to come back. Next week, stream times will be as normal, except for I don't think I'm going to be able to do the song feedback stream on Wednesday because of holiday commitment that I have to take care of. So office hour stream on Monday, and then Patreon stream on Tuesday. Next week will be normal times, but no feedback stream, unfortunately. And then after that, I think the rest of the year should be normal stream schedule. But yeah, so I think we got through everybody. Appreciate everybody who has sent in tracks, whether you're a new person or somebody who sends in tracks all the time. I love hearing what you guys are working on. It gets me super inspired. I'm probably going to hang out for another minute or two in case anybody else shows up and wants to send me a track. But I think that's going to be pretty much it for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. I had a great time. Yeah. And if I don't see you guys, I hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend. Make some new tracks, and you'll have 2 weeks to work on some new stuff before we do another song feedback stream. Just making sure I got everybody. That looks good. Sweet. Sweet. All right. Thank you guys. Have a good evening, and I'll see you next week.